to exploit that oil. And that's something that has to be on the table. Anybody else? I want to thank you. Okay, last question.
Could I just ask a follow-through on that? As you know, I did business in the Middle East for many years, including Iran before '79, and particularly in Iran, when I would sit around University Square and talk to students, they were very pro-American. You know, my wife and I, in the Middle East at least once a year, even now, and I find most people that you talk to on the street don't hate Americans. The governments in certain cases do. And I'm just wondering if you would comment on that, what your feeling is of the relationship of the people on the street in the various countries toward America.
I think it's really positive. I think that at one point in time during the Green Revolution, probably back in, 2009, there was an opportunity, and Israel really pushed us to do aggressive sanctions at that time and to support the movement on the streets. The administration didn't do it. So did we lose an opportunity? I think the Israelis think that we did. I think that the analysis I've seen is that the majority of the Iranian people probably certainly support it, particularly the urban population. But if in fact we retaliated, there's a lot of national pride in having a nuclear energy program. Not in having a nuclear weapon, but having a nuclear energy program. And and so there is some concern that the Iranian people would actually rally around the government if there were a U.S. retaliation that stopped them from having a nuclear program for purposes of energy. Let me just say one thing about I think the United States is very naive about the Middle East, just as we were about communism in the early days of the Cold War, where we saw communism as a monolith, and we failed to see the fractures between the Chinese and the Russians and the other factions. And if we had exploited those fractures early on, we would have done a whole lot better and lost a whole lot fewer people. And I think that it's the same way with Islam, that we see it all as a monolith, and we see them and we try and look at them and see them like us, not like us. And they're divided from within, and we failed to see that, and because of that, I think we were, just the extraordinary level of it, and I'm an Iraq War veteran, and I'm proud of my service, but I think it's one of the most incomprehensible missions in looking back in this whole thing about nation building, and how ridiculous it all was, and how it actually, at the end of the day, I think it hurt us, and where, in 2003. There we were, this regime spiraling down. 80% of the Iraqi people were disaffected with the regime. 20% Kurds in the north, 60% Shia Arabs in the south. We're flying no-fly zones, combat air patrols to protect those populations. We could have simply provided minimal support to the disaffected elements of the country and let them take care of the 20%. But we had, God bless George Bush, but he had a vision of what they're capable of beyond what I believe that they're capable of. And instead of letting them sort it out, we went into the country. And I think it was a terrible mistake. And in Afghanistan, I'm very, how things are going there is incredible. And, I got in an argument with General Petraeus one day in the House Armed Services Committee, where I said, what the Bush administration did initially was brilliant. We were attacked on 9/11 by Al-Qaeda. They planned and coordinated that attack from Afghanistan. The Taliban controlled much of the country and gave them safe harbor. And after we were attacked, we went to the Taliban and said, turn over Osama bin Laden. They refused to do so. Then instead of invading, pacifying, administering the whole country, we supported the Northern Alliance, the anti-Taliban forces, a collection of militias. And they drove out the Taliban. They drove out the Taliban completely out of the country. Then we made the most incredible mistake that we paid so dearly for. Because we have it's great to be an idealistic, aspirational people in domestic policy, but we got to be more realistic in foreign policy. And so instead of saying to the victors on the ground, you know, okay, you know, you won here, and we'll support you as long as you keep the Taliban out and keep Al-Qaeda out. And by the way, you really ought to reach out to make sure you have a governance that's reflective of all the factions within the country. And we love it if you move to democratic institutions, and we'll help you get there if that's the direction you want to go. But instead what we did is we pushed the victors of the ground aside, superimposed a political process that gave them the government we wanted them to have, doesn't fit that political culture at all, corrupt as can be, and we've lost, you know, thousands of lives over there, and all the wounded over there, and all the billions and billions of hundreds of billions of dollars there. And when we could have accomplished it without putting our forces on the ground. And so the corruption is so extraordinary, and I'll close with this, that you know, I pushed, got an investigation going, congressional investigation going, because I thought I want to take this one issue that I found out, and I want to push it, and because I think if I unravel this, it would unravel other issues, and it was that we basically fund their military, and so there's a hospital, the Dawood National Hospital in Kabul, and that they sold, that those in charge of the hospital sold $13 million of U.S., no, it was over $30 million of U.S. military aid on the black market, and were never relieved for it. And that the soldiers and police, the Afghan soldiers and police who were wounded on the battlefield and went to that hospital, died from untreated wounds and starvation because the families couldn't come up with the necessary bribes. That's who we're dealing with. That's who we're dealing with. And it's a tough situation. But we learned by this, I think, going forward, if anything I accomplish on that committee, it's making sure this country never goes down that same path again. God bless you for all you do, and this is a tough election. We need your support. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Congressman Kaufman. We had another candidate come in here. We're going to give him a minute to come up here and tell us who he is. We are also in the process of certifying the VIP or the VP votes, so that when I give those out to you, we can